Hello everyone and welcome back to another gaming video. Today I'm going to be counting down just some of my top games from this past year of 2020. These aren't going to be in any particular order. I think I just put these in the order that I played them. So basically, first game I played is going to be the first game, and then when you get to the end, it'll be like the last game or last game that I played that was like released. So starting up here, we have Animal Crossing: New Horizon. So picked this up on Nintendo Switch back in I want to say March. I think it came out in March. Kind of bought it right before kind of the pandemic, and it made basically staying at home with the pandemic kind of bearable. So basically, played a lot of Animal Crossing, watched a lot of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, but Animal Crossing. So I've played. I think I played Animal Crossing on the original one on the GameCube. I think I did the Animal Crossing on DS. I kind of forget the name of that one. And then I don't have a 3DS or a 3DS. So I didn't do the one on that system, but picked it up on Switch and had a lot of fun with it. Basically, going around my island and kind of like picking up fruit and doing fishing, catching bugs, finding the fossils. Had a lot of fun, kind of like modifying my house. I think I got to the point in the game where I had a main room and then two smaller rooms. So I think I played it for about probably a month and a half straight. Um, haven't really played it for a while, but I remember definitely having a lot of fun playing it initially. So basically, had my house, had like my main kind of room that had all my stuff in it. Had a room above that, which is basically just like nice little kitchen I created, and then had a kind of like a bedroom area in my third room. Didn't do the other room and didn't get enough bells to really build the basement. I wasn't very particularly good with the stock market either. I generally sleep in on Sunday, so most of the time I would miss the person coming in to sell the turnips anyway. I think I did it a couple times and ended up. I think I did well one time, made quite a bit of bells on 1 week of that, and then basically kind of broke even on the next one. But aside from that, basically going to other people's islands, like friends' islands, and just kind of hanging out and having people come visit my island was a lot of fun. Basically, like I did kind of get bored with the game after about a month and a half, but I still think that was definitely like time well spent with the game. Some of the stuff was kind of weird, like where how like well it's obviously Tom Nook, so he's gonna try to steal from you, but some of the bell prices for like a room sound like the price that you would pay for like an actual like a full house. Like it's like 500,000 bells for a room where you can probably like have $500,000, you can probably go out and maybe purchase a small house with that. But that being said, I really liked the Nook Mile system because basically playing the game, you earn miles, which you can then use to purchase things in the game with that. That was cool because basically it's like, hey, you've caught 100 fish. Here's some Nook Miles. Or you've talked to all your neighbors. Here's some more Nook Miles. Or I remember one for it's like, hey, like donate a certain number of things to the museum, and here's a bunch of miles. So basically, it felt like everything you did, or pretty much almost everything you did in the game, would have some kind of way to track it, so you can earn miles off of it. So that was really cool. Um, and I named my island. My island was named Chansey after the best Pokemon ever, in my opinion, because Chansey is awesome. But yeah, named my island Chansey. Visited a few friends' islands. Really liked going, just flying to the kind of the randomly generated islands to gather, like resources and materials to bring back to my island so I can do crafting. I really like the crafting. Also, having the Nook's Cranny where you can actually today like the Nook kids are like basically like, hey, we're buying this particular table, and if you bring us this table, we'll pay like double the price for it. So I would basically go back to my house, just craft a bunch of stuff like craft. I remember like crafting like 30 or 40 of something one time, and just making a ton of bells that way. So that was a lot of fun. I might revisit the game as well. I know definitely my town's probably been neglected at this point because I haven't, probably like pulled up the weeds for a while and all that kind of stuff. But Animal Crossing New Horizons is the first game on this list, and we're going to move into our next game. Next up is Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. And I've had a few of the Microsoft Flight Simulator games. I think the first one I played was on Windows 3.1. I don't know exactly what version it was. And then I believe I got Flight Simulator 2000 when I had Windows 98, and that was fun for a while. And then I do have, I think it was like was it Flight Simulator 10 or Flight Simulator X, the Steam edition of that. But this came out back in I want to say August, And the main thing that sold me on it was the photographic textures that certain cities were built with. I think they call it photogrammetry, or like, I'm not sure if I'm not pronouncing that correctly, but basically certain cities, most major cities in the U.S. Have that built in, so you can basically load up a city and just kind of fly around it. The maps, I don't believe, were super up to date. I think the maps are kind of around the 2014 time period, because I remember on the Flight Simulator Reddit there was somebody flying around New York, and you can actually, and it may have been taken from like New Year's Eve or something like that, where a sign said, like New Year's Eve 2014 or New Year's Day 2014, something like that. But even with the maps being outdated, the game is it's really fun. I like that they can have it be you can tone it down to be. I'm not particularly good at flight simulators, so I was playing on medium initially and crashing a lot because I was flying my plane was too low, and I was basically stressing like the body of it by going as fast as I was, as low to the ground as I was. So I turned that to easy. In easy, you can basically turn it into a kind of like a sightseeing simulator. You can also like turn the difficulty all the way up for the kind of like hardcore flight enthusiasts that use like full on flight sticks and all that. I was just using a 360 controller, but I've definitely had a lot of fun flying around various places that I've been and places that I haven't been. I just did a flight over like a few nights ago over Hollywood. Basically, uh, started my flight over kind of like LA, flew out to the Hollywood area, kind of flew around like the Hollywood Bowl and kind of back around. That's really cool. One thing I really like is that you can actually type in a GPS location and basically have your flight start right at that location. So if I want to visit a certain like place, I can just basically like put it in. When you go search for what airport you want to take off from, you just paste in the GPS coordinates, and then you can basically just it'll drop a pin on the map, and that's where you start from. So that's really cool. Um, there were some issues I ran into a few weeks into the game. The photogrammetry for me stopped working. I don't know exactly what was causing it, but I think, and then an update came out that fixed it, and I think it's something to do with the connection to the servers, because I noticed I had to like reconnect to the servers one time to do something to get like an update, and then once I reconnected to the servers, the photogrammetry was working again. So I did a flight in there maybe a few weeks ago, just flying over the Glenwood Canyon, which if I have driven through that on my American Truck Simulator videos, but I did a flight over it and did a flight over Lake Powell not too long ago because I was watching on HBO. I was watching Point Break, and there's the scene where they're skydiving. And I just searched where that scene was shot, and it was shot over Lake Powell. So I actually did a flight over Lake Powell because that scene is just like really really cool looking. Like it's really shot well, and it was kind of fun to fly a plane over that in Flight Simulator. So like I said, been playing Flight Simulator games casually for a while, but I've never really been an enthusiast. But Flight Simulator 2020 is really cool because you can just kind of fly over a city and kind of just sightsee. You can turn on all the assistance, turn on all the kind of things that make the game easier, so it's easier to, like not necessarily easier to take off and easier to land, but basically have it to where you won't stress the plane by flying as low as you are when you're wanting to like fly close to a building. So Flight Simulator is one of my favorite games of 2020. I believe I'm like 30 hours into it right now or something like that. Next up, we have the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and Pro Skater 2 remake. I was really looking forward to this since it was announced. Picked it up on the Epic Store and played quite a bit with it and really, really enjoyed it. They definitely, I was kind of worried how the um, updated controls would work in the older games because they added reverts to Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. They added manuals into the first game, into Pro Skater 1. But I do like that if you want to just go to a classic controller version of the game, you can totally play Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 the way it was kind of designed. Same with 2. But you can also turn on the regular controllers, which allow reverts and just allow huge combos and all that. I wasn't a huge fan of reverts in 3. I thought it made the game too easy. But I do like that the goals in Pro Skater 1 and 2 do scale to having reverts. So sometimes some of the score goals have been updated. I do like the new challenge system where there's basically a whole bunch of different challenges you can do, and you unlock different things for doing those challenges. Career mode was really cool because it was basically you had a career mode for Pro Skater 1, a career mode for Pro Skater 2, and then just kind of like an infinite mode where you can go in and just kind of skate like your free skate and all that kind of stuff. So Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1, Pro Skater 2, some of my favorite games on the PlayStation that I still own those games. I basically before this game came out, I would pretty much annually break out my PS2 to play Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, some of Pro Skater 3. Hopefully, Pro Skater 3 gets added in as DLC, or they do a remaster on that, because that would be actually really cool. But Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1, Pro Skater 2, one of my favorite games of this year. Don't know how many hours I got into it. I don't think I actually logged that or haven't checked, but it was quite a few. Next up, we have Fuser by Harmonix. I kind of bought this on a whim. I forget what other game I was buying. I was buying two games at once, I think, and I added something to my cart in Steam, and saw this game called Fuser. I'm like, all right, what's this Fuser game all about? It's getting pretty good reviews, so checked it out. Kind of just bought it on a whim, and I'm really having a lot of fun with it. Um, it has basically it's a DJing game, plays in the kind of the vein of Rock Band or Guitar Hero, but you have like four turntables spinning, and you can drop different segments of different songs onto each of those turntables. So you have and be like, I want the drums from this song and the vocals from that song or the guitar from that song, and you can you're remixing as you're playing. It has a pretty cool campaign. The campaign is basically one big tutorial guiding you through the basics early on into some of the more advanced kind of things where you're like queuing records up and doing various switches. You're basically setting tempos and changing the key of songs, changing the mode from minor to major. So it starts off very simple, and then they definitely add a lot of more interesting concepts, like concepts with effects, concepts with using risers, and a whole bunch of other stuff. The freestyle mode is a lot of fun because you basically just load up a crate with a bunch of music. I usually go in whenever I do freestyle. I usually will empty my crate entirely and just do a random. You can autofill the crate with all your songs, or not all your songs, but like a certain number of them. And I kind of like just doing it randomly, just so I can get a different mix of songs each time. So that is fun. Freestyle is fun. The co-op freestyle is also fun, where you're playing online. You basically, each player takes a turn doing their version of the mix. So basically, like if I start off, I'll do my mix, and then the next player will go, and their mix will start off with whatever was left in my mix, and then they can modify that mix however they choose. They can change out entire parts of the song. They can leave parts that they like. So let's say there's a song that isn't in their crate, but I have the vocals for it on my mix. They can just leave that part of the mix there, and then just focus on like the drums, the guitar, and the drums, guitar, and like the synthesizer section or keyboard section or whatever. Some of the instruments change up depending on what's in them. Like in one song, like on the controller, the yellow button, the Y button, controls one of the discs, and sometimes that could be guitars, sometimes it could be keyboards. In some songs, like there's like a DMX song, X Gonna Give It to You has like a really good like horn section. Rehab by Amy Winehouse is a really cool horn section as well. One thing I really do like is that there might be a song that isn't particularly great. You might not even love the song or really even like it all that much, but you find one aspect of the song that really works. There's like country music in the game. I'm not a huge fan of country, but there's one, I think it's called Mud on the Tires. I think it's Brad Paisley. I'm not exactly sure. But for example, that song, not a big fan of the rest of the song, but that song has a really cool drum track. All Star by Smash Mouth has a really cool drum track as well. So you might find songs that you don't particularly like all that much, but find one aspect of it that is just really good. So there's that. There's a whole ton of songs to unlock by through DLC as well. But some of the songs you unlock by beating the campaign. Some of the songs you unlock by earning money in the game for basically leveling up. And there's a lot of ways to earn experience in the game. You can earn experience through doing the campaign. You can earn experience by doing freestyle and capturing a mix or saving a mix and sharing it to the Fuser kind of like social media thing. There's you get experience for evaluating other people's mixes when there's a weekly challenge. So every week there's a different kind of challenge to do. I think there was one where it was a rap challenge. So basically, and you had to use a certain, I think it was called the vocal ad libs. You basically, it's an instrument that you're supposed to be required to use in the mix. But that was fun. There was one where it was a vintage rock inspired challenge where they gave you a kind of like a vintage drum set to mess with, and you would create a mix with that particular one track using that particular instrument. Like I said, there's like all kinds of effects you can choose from. There's all kinds of instruments you can actually like play and create loops of. So you can go in and you can basically use some of the drum instruments and create various drum loops and drop those into a mix, or you can just go in there and play it, kind of play it live. Again, there's a huge amount of DLC. I think there's DLC coming out like every week for it. So I'm definitely really enjoying Fuser. I'm really glad I picked it up. And finally, this is again this isn't in order. This is just the order in which I played these games. Last up, before we get to some honorable mentions, is Hades. So Hades, by the people that made Transistor and Bastion, it's a basically a roguelike. You play as the son of Hades, trying to escape the underworld. So basically, you go as far as you can, and then once you get defeated, you kind of start over. There is a little bit of progression between your runs because sometimes you might find a keepsake. The keepsakes will have various effects that happen or protect you, and do things on future playthroughs. The combat is really cool. I like there's like a whole bunch of different weapons you can choose. I really like the spear. The spear, you basically he kind of stabs stuff with the spear, but you can also hit Y on your controller, and I believe he'll throw the spear. And kind of like Thor's hammer in the Avengers, you can actually hit Y again and recall the spear to you. So sometimes you can basically throw a spear through something and bring it back, and it'll hit that enemy. Like going toward them and then coming back toward you. So there's that. I like that there is various kind of like randomization with the various Greek gods. The Greek gods come down and grant you different abilities, and usually you get a choice of three different options. Like it'll be like your attack is increased by this amount of damage, or your attack speed does this, or this certain attack now has a stun effect, that kind of thing. And you're basically just playing through, trying to get from Hades to Mount Olympus. There's some really cool boss fights in there as well, and the art style is just awesome. And it's like really a really cool roguelike. And one thing I really like about roguelikes is since there really isn't a whole lot of like carryover, there is a little in this one with like certain items that you get and certain abilities that you can maybe like unlock that you unlock later on. That basically like once you go through a run, you're pretty much done. You don't have to worry about like saving your game and that kind of thing. So that is Hades. That's gonna be my like that's my probably like my top 5 games right there. So Animal Crossing, Microsoft Flight Simulator, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 Remake, Fuser, and Hades, and into a couple honorable mentions here. First up is the Colorado DLC for American Truck Simulator. It's an honorable mention because it's DLC. It's not a full game, but was looking forward to that since it got announced. Got released in November. I did the whole countdown series of counting down the weeks until it released, and then I'm still basically weekly doing a delivery in Colorado. I'm trying to basically deliver to, or at least discover every major city that's in the DLC. So I've been having a lot of fun with that. I'm probably going to continue making those videos. They just announced the Wyoming expansion, so I'll be getting that once that comes out because that basically just sits north of Colorado, so you can basically just take one of the roads straight north and get to Wyoming that way. You can also get to it through Utah as well. So that's going to be really interesting when that comes out. Next, kind of honorable mention is Baldur's Gate 3. I didn't put it in my top list because it's not a complete game yet. It's early access, and there's a lot of stuff missing from it right now. So, but what I did play, I really enjoyed. I basically played up to a certain point with 3 different characters. Started off with a rogue, a human rogue, created a human fighter, and then also tried the game with a tiefling warlock. And I like that each character in class played completely differently. Basically, like I like that the quests give you multiple ways to kind of proceed. Be like you can. There's one quest where it's like you can solve this with violence by attacking these people, or you can solve it peacefully with this option, or you can completely bypass it altogether and come back and have some other result happen that is a completely different result from what would have happened if you had done option A or option B. So I imagine once this game is supposed to come out next year, that on my 2021 list, this game is probably going to be on there. if it's complete, because from what I've played with the early access, I've really enjoyed it. Once we get the full story and the all the classes are put in and all the races are put in, I could definitely see it being one of probably maybe one of my favorite games from next year. We'll just have to wait and see when they actually get the game completed. Because again, they did announce it was supposed to be basically a year from the early access when the game would be done. So basically, I think it came out in October. So hopefully next October we have the full game. And obviously, have already bought the game. So once it comes out, I'll be able to just basically just like jump right in and see what else is new with it. And after that, we actually have had a little caveat with this. I'm playing on PC. My PC is fairly old, but the game runs fairly well. And that is Cyberpunk 2077. I've run into a couple bugs. I've only played through one act so far, so I did the first act of the game. I have noticed a couple bugs. So the bugs that I've noticed the most of are with palm trees. Like I think, like for example, especially when you're driving around in the car or being driven around in the car by someone else, you'll see palm trees off in the distance, and they'll kind of be highlighted. They'll be like basically like so the ones for me had like border like kind of like glowing borders around them, and they were black palm trees, and they were being rendered off in the distance, but for some reason they were rendering. I was able to see them, even though they were potentially rendered behind walls or behind buildings and that kind of stuff. So Cyberpunk 2077. Again, I've done one act. Oh, and the other major bug that I've noticed, and it only happened once, and once I reset the game, it was gone. But there's a level later in the game where it's kind of like an interactive cutscene almost, and you're required to basically you're being driven around and you need to fire a gun at some targets. For some reason, when I got to that level in the game, it wasn't rendering my gun at all, and it wasn't rendering any of the other items that were being given to me, like in that scene. So basically, my character was always dying because I wasn't able to fire back because my gun wasn't actually like rendering into the game. So that was kind of frustrating. But like I said, I reset the game, closed the game down, relaunched it, and then that bug was gone. But the palm tree bug was still there. So once CD Projekt Red gets some more fixes made, get some more patches out, I can imagine this being again potentially on my list for next year, as I'll have had more time with it. Like I said, I'm only one act into the game at the moment. But that's it for this video. So this has again kind of been my top games of the year with a few honorable mentions. Counting down 2020. Hopefully we get a bunch of new cool games in 2021. That's gonna do it for this video, and that's gonna do it for the probably last video of this year. I'm gonna get this uploaded in just a little bit, so it'll go up before midnight, at least my time. And then we'll see you in the future with more videos. Remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. I want to thank you again for watching, and take care.